going on, man?
Going?
I'm doing good. Man, it looks like you're in the tropical oasis of Cuba.
No, wait, Florida today. I
Same
hear
thing. Come on, same thing.
you've been on the range a lot, huh? You doing a lot of
Yeah,
classes.
it's good. Yeah, good. Just that hip pocket training. That stuff that I think people want to see more than anything. And I enjoy doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody wants to be out there filming for 3 hours or 2 days straight, getting edited stuff. Let's just get out there and do about 15 minutes, knock it out, and put it up on the site. And I think that's where a lot of training is going that direction anyway, because of good or bad YouTube and all that other crap we have out there. So all that other social media crap we have out there, aside from E3 website, that's not social media crap. That's good stuff.
It's crazy because we are actually starting to add. We're going to be doing Paula now and Rumble and the other platforms just to be able to reach more people, more members, so that they don't get blocked. But what have been your classes? What have you been teaching?
I've only have 5 this year. I already did one. It was just an intro to pistol, just a level 1 pistol, which was great. Good times. I had 15 people out there, which is about as much as my range can handle. I had to cut it at 15. 1-day courses they're fun. It's just fun. I mean, and you learn a lot, and it was great. I got a course up in Divide Defense with Daniel Lombard up there at Crete at the compound, and that's always a good one. That's an IMT class, an individual movement technique class. So they'll be getting up and down. A lot of that one's pretty arduous. They're going to be busting their butts out there, and then a rifle class, and then a high ready only class, because there's a lot of people out there that don't know that, and that is something it's a good skill set to have. And then that's it, man. Maybe I'll do one more in September, which I've been asking for, do a ladies only class, which I love doing those, because ladies, you do listen better than us idiots, and you do a lot. It's so much easier to teach because the ladies do listen, and honestly, they're as a whole, most ladies are better shooters right off the bat.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's my daughters and my wife. They're certainly way better than I am. It's great. So there's a ton of live people on. So hey, thanks everybody for coming, and we got a lot in store for you today. Everybody knows we got TANTO on here. I'll talk a little bit about the format TANTO and kind of go through, because we have a lot of members on, and then we actually open this up to the public too. So we have a lot of folks that are not members that are on today. I mean, there's a ton of folks on today. So welcome everybody. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
And this was a fun conversation. I've been excited about this and excited for everybody to hear a little bit of secrets and behind the scenes and some stuff that most people never heard about. But so again, welcome the members, E3 members, and then welcome to everybody else that are not members for joining us. And I'll tell you a little bit of the format. So we got a ton of questions that already came in from the members because they knew what we're doing. So the topic today is, we're calling it the 14th hour. So for everybody that knows Kris, Kris probably from his book, 13 Hours in Benghazi, The Secret Soldiers, or maybe you've seen the movie.
Or the sunglass commercial, right?
Or the sunglass commercial. There you go. I don't know how you got talked into that one, brother, but that's okay.
You don't knock those $20 glasses. Those things are freaking awesome. And I've broken 3 pairs, and I don't feel bad when I break these things. The Oakleys, that pisses me off. No, but when I break the $20 ones, I'm okay with it.
I hear you. But so hopefully everybody here knows Kris and knows TANTO. So we're gonna dive through. So I'm gonna probably interrupt you a lot, Kris, because we have so much. I know that even though we're really talking about the hours after the 13 hours. So if people saw the movie, if they've read the book, there's the things they haven't seen is what happens right after that, like the plane ride back, or even the truck ride from
the
consulate to the airport, or your first call to your wife, or what was your first dinner when you got back? What did they say to you? So we got a ton of stuff we're going to walk through, and we're going to try to keep as much in here. And everybody, this is part 1. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. I've already heard some of the fun stuff, and then we got some special gifts for everybody on the stream today that we're going to share with you towards probably mid part of the thing. So cool. I guess first, and you just said it, Kris, because if we're going to talk about kind of what happened after, and I know that we're going to get into when you go back to the base and all that kind of stuff, but the truck ride seemed to have been kind of interesting because you got off the
Yeah,
roof, these guys showed up, it was Delta Force or
yeah.
some Delta Force, and then what you don't
So
see in the movie is the ride from the annex or from the base there to the
the
airport,
annex, yeah,
the annex
yeah.
to the airport, and you don't see that in the movie. You guys just end up being at the airport waiting for the planes. But what happened in that truck ride? Like, what was that like?
Well,
Who were you with?
well, the Dboys came over, and I'll say Dboys. That's what we call Delta. If you've served with them, it's kind of an endearing term. Whether they like it or not, I don't really care. But the Dboys, they came with four other GRS guys from Tripoli, which included Bub, who Glenn Doherty, who passed away that night, and then there was three other GRS guys that were there because we had a contingent, a detachment, or an attachment, or we were the attachment to the main force, which was in Tripoli. That was the most GRS guys, so they were there. Well, when the fighting was over, and we were loading up, the movie showed me, and you see Pablo Schreiber riding on the top, which is me, guys. That's me in the movie, riding on the top of a Hilux, a truck. And honestly, that wasn't the case. It was fine. Since we didn't promote the movie part exactly on the ride back, we didn't show a lot of the ride back. I didn't have a problem with them doing that, but I actually drove one of the sedans to the airport, and I took the Dboys. The Delta guys were with me, and we were already still a bit seething when you see the Dboys drop Roan's body off the rooftop. That did happen, guys, and actually we didn't show them also drop Bub's body off the rooftop as well. So we really weren't happy with them at that point, but the situation dictated that we got out of there, not getting a big fist fight with a couple of our own. So they got in the car with me. I do remember being extremely tired. I was so fatigued, tired, and I had my M4. I had a HK 416, and it was a short. It's about 8-inch barrel on that thing. And I remember I got in the vehicle and I was driving. So I'm right-handed, so I had it holding it right here. I was trying. My brain was not functioning. I was so tired. My brain just was not doing what my muscles were not doing what my brain wanted it to do. So before I got in the car, my brain was telling this arm, switch the gun over to the left hand so I could stow it right here instead of right here in the corner with the sedan, because it was going to be in the way. Sometimes it works in some vehicles. The sedan I was driving didn't work with me shoving it near between the driver's seat and the console. So I was trying to move it over here. I got in the car and my brain just forgot to do it. I was so tired. So when I got in, I sat down and I'm like, oh crap, my brain muscles didn't work. My hand didn't switch. My gun didn't switch from the right hand to the left hand. So I was trying to bring my gun over the top of the steering wheel to get it situated so I could drive, and I couldn't do it. My brain, it was not registering. I kept bumping the steering wheel with the handguard, and the D-boy says, "Oh, I got you," and I'm like, I know, we're good." And what was weird to me, or what was not weird, but was very, I guess the word I'm looking for, surprising to me, those guys, they were panicking, just pinging. As I got it, and they were like, "We got to get out of here. We got to go. We got to go. We got to get." And I was very surprised because of supposed to be the maturity level when you get that high in the military, and they were younger than us. They
I was
weren't
going
as
to
old
ask
as
you
we
that. Were
were.
these like seasoned guys, or are they just
Well,
young?
when you get into the unit Delta, you're pretty seasoned. I mean, you're going to be in your 30s or upper 20s. You've been in the military for quite a while before you can even try out. At least 6 years. That's quite a long time. And you're coming from a special operations unit or a light infantry unit, or you can be in the Marine Corps or a SEAL as well, and still, because it crosses over. And so one was I didn't know at the time. One was a former Marine, and the other one was from 82nd, and spent a lot of time at 82nd. They were both high-ranking guys within their respective services before they came over. So, no, when you're a D-boy, you are seasoned. There's no rookies in D-boy. You don't get to be a SF baby and go right into Delta after basic training. So, I was really surprised because throughout the night with Roan and Oz and Tig and Jack, everybody maintained their composure. The maturity levels shown. And so when I got in, I'm like, what in the world? And they were, and honestly, I said, dude, it's lighten up, man. I said, we're not dead yet. They're not going to hit us. And and that was my gut feeling, is the mortars had stopped and I knew the mortars had been taken out. And it was me, it's more like, gosh, you're throwing gasoline on the fire. And I said it briefly. And then I said, I got my weapon system. And actually what I did, I still couldn't, I just crossed it over my arm. So I had my rifle right here and I was starting to head out the gate. As we headed out the gate, we got out the annex gate. We banged a right on Annex. We called it Annex Road. I'm sorry. We banged a left on Annex Road to head to Benina. And we had to stop to let the whole convoy consolidate, because if we would have took off, the convoy was so monstrous, it would have created that accordion effect that a lot of you that have worked with PSD elements and have worked in large motorcades know that that's the hardest thing to do, is not really not getting into attack or fighting your way out of attack. It's just keeping the convoy, especially if it's huge, together. And I remember we pulled out the gate and we were sitting there and they were constantly, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go. And I was like, dudes, calm down. This is not, and it was not helping me at all, because I wanted to go too, but, and I wouldn't say it was a panic, because they weren't panic. They are tough guys. Delta, you get to Delta for a reason. You're top of your game, but it was the adrenaline that comes, I think, being able to control that adrenaline, not becomes with experience, but becomes with maturity. I guess experience is part of that. But I saw, and that's where I saw, and I do speak on it a lot, and I do talk in my classes a lot. Maturity is important, just as important as skill sets. And I saw that right there at that time.
Well, I think also from the mindset of what you just went through for 2 days or a day, versus, what your situation you were in with those guys was a cakewalk, but they just showed up, and to them, they're in the middle of the shit. So it's like, now
and that's you look at it that way, but then the way I was trained is you look at the guys that you're coming in, how are they acting? It's like, think of it flying on an airplane and you start hearing turbulence. Who do you look at? You look at the flight attendants, right? If they're panicking, okay, something's bad happening. If they're not panicking, and you fly a lot, or the pilot, if you're in a little plane, if they're not, we're good to go. Well, that's how I always looked at whenever we went into a scene that maybe I was coming into new. I looked around at everybody there, especially the people that we were coming to support or supplement. How are they acting? All right, things are going bad. They're acting kind of calm. All right, I think we have control of the situation. And I knew how we were acting because we'd been acting, and that's the testament to the team I was with. They're tremendous. The team was outstanding, and the age of the team helped a bunch. We were all Tig was 38. He was our youngest guy. The rest of us were in our 40s. It's a testament for age and maturity levels, and just the calmness that was within that team that really, I think, more than the skill sets, helped us get through the night. The skill sets were great. We all had that skill set being where we are, but the maturity level was something that was different. And I was already, and I was still pissed at them for dropping the bodies off a little bit. So maybe I had a little bit of a bone to pick, and I was a little, I had that little grain of salt in my keister there that was already pissed. And I was also upset because, for those that don't know this, I had to take a shit that night. I did. That was no joke. I could not get, when the new team came in, I could not get one of them to come up to my roof to take my position so I could go take a crap. And I was pissed. Like, dude, I got 2 D-boys here. I got 3 JRS guys. Bub already went to building C. Will somebody come relieve me so I could take a crap? Nobody would come up to my rooftop. And that's when Boone said, dude, I got your sector. I got it. Go take a dump. I shimmied down the ladder and I got back up. And why that, and it's funny, but why did that piss me off more than anything? It's like, what, are you guys afraid to come up? Come on, let's help each other out here. And they didn't ever come to the rooftop in none of the firefights to just support and supplement our positions.
How long were they there?
Breaks.
Like, when did they get there? And then there was still firefights when they showed up?
Well, the last firefight happened. That's when Bub and Rowan died.
That's when the first group got
there, right? The movie, actually, the timeline on our movie is spot on. I mean, that's what I do love about Michael Bay. And he got that timeline pretty damn, almost 99.9%. But they came in, they had been there before the attack. They probably got there 20 minutes before the mortars hit. But when you come in and you're a supplemental force, you're somebody that's coming in, that's 101. That's infantry one. That's not even special operations. That's infantry 101. You come and relieve the guys that have been fighting for the last 8 hours, and at least give them a break so they can go splash some water on their face, get a cup of coffee, take a dump. And that's basic infantry. That's
gotcha.
stuff you learn in
Yeah,
basic
yeah.
training. So I was already
Well,
kind of pissed off at the
what
time.
how so we haven't even got to the 14th hour yet, but how long was that ride to the
The
airport?
ride, it was about 10-15 minutes, and
Okay.
it
So
was
nothing happened on that ride. It was pretty
no, we
non-eventful. You
were,
got to
but
the airport.
it was pretty badass. So we were the biggest, baddest. I've been in a lot of motorcades, whether it was with other foreign forces or with Blackwater or being supplemented with the U.S. Army. And that motorcade was monstrous. It was, I mean, I felt like
Cool.
Jolly the
How
Green
many
Giant rolling down.
vehicles?
We had 40, easy 40 vehicles.
Whose
And
vehicles were they?
they belonged for those that don't know, that militia that came and saved us, and actually the militia that took out the mortar team for us too. We didn't get that into the movie, and we did, because we didn't know it until the hearings came out. The Benghazi Select Committee by Trey Gowdy. Henry testified, our little interpreter. He's a U.S. citizen now. He actually came and testified, and he's the one that got that militia to take the mortar team out for us, then come get us. They belonged to Omar Gaddafi. They were Omar Gaddafi's militia. So if that isn't the most ironic thing in the world, we were in Libya to overthrow the most evil man in the world. Oh, this guy's terrible. He's going to destroy. Omar Gaddafi was no threat to us. And then on top of that, his militia or himself, he's the one that saved, the ghost of Omar Gaddafi saved us that night. And that's something that should be out there everywhere in the media, and it's not, because of course, well, why would it? It makes one party look bad, and it makes people idolize in this world look terrible. But we were saved by the person that we went out there to take out.
Cool.
And
Interesting. So when you got to the airport, obviously you get the first group that jumped on the Gulf Stream and head out of there. How much time was it there that you guys were waiting before that?
When we got there, the plane had to stay there. For those that haven't read the book, we didn't put it in the movie, it was in the book. We had a negligent discharge on that Gulf Stream. Our HVAC tech tried to clear his pistol when he got into the bird, and he took his magazine out and didn't rack his slide, and he pulled the trigger, and the bullet actually went in and shot the plane. We're like, holy shit, somebody just shot themselves in the plane. Luckily for us, it lodged in the iron of the seat and didn't break the fuselage. So that plane sat longer than what it was supposed to. It was supposed to load up and go. That first
How long were they on the ground?
Probably 15 minutes. And
Okay.
and during that time frame, Dave Ubben was starting to bleed out. We ran out of IV bags, and he was actually seizuring because he was going into seizures, constant convulsions, because tourniquets were. We had 3 tourniquets on everything, and they kept coming loose because of all the blood and sweat and the IV and the just. Right. It was just. So he was continually convulsing, and it was. We didn't show in the movie, but it wasn't a panic, but it was a pretty controlled hurry, just trying to get that plane out.
Where did that Gulfstream fly to?
It flew back to Tripoli, to the airport, and
to the base you guys went to.
Yeah,
also?
to our main CIA base, which was in Tripoli, and that's the majority of the cases. The majority of the CIA bases, the main ones, are in the biggest metropolitan areas.
So how long was that flight?
It's an hour. And so it took him about an hour, but we had an 18 Delta there that I don't know where he appeared from. I don't know why he didn't come over, but we also had Bub and Rowan as Delta, so I guess he didn't need to, but there was an actual SF Green Beret 18 Delta in Tripoli. And most of the Libyan doctors at that point from Tripoli, the ones at the hospitals, had been Western trained. So they were able to stabilize Dave and Mark Oz.
You mean when they get on the ground in Tripoli, you're talking about?
Yeah, when they got to Tripoli.
Okay. So and the Gulfstream got there.
The Gulfstream
got there. Took care of them. How long were you on the ground before you were on the ground for an hour after that?
We were there for an hour, and it was honestly, it was parody. It was a comedy show when that was going on, because the movie showed us giving keys to the guys to take our cars, and that did happen. But they actually fought over it. And somebody had and they were arguing about the cars, because these are level 7 Mercedes and BMW, and these are top-notch cars. I swear I saw one in the paper.
Were they all like bulletproof and things, or not all of them?
What they were all, yeah, they were all of them were leveled up 7s that we had. But one of the Libyans, when they were jostling for the keys, he had his finger on his AK-47 on his trigger, and he had another negligent discharge. And this was, I remember I was standing here facing away talking to, I think, our country team leader. I can't give his name because I think he's still working, but he did very well. Our Benghazi team leader was awful, but our Tripoli team leader was outstanding. But I was standing there, and Jack, I remember, was standing over there, and they just cracked it down, and it went right into the tarmac of the airfield. We turned around, and one was a senior. We didn't show in the movie that one was actually a senior guy. I mean, we showed him, but one of them was really in charge. And he came over and he grabbed him by his scruff and he yanked him out of there. And I never saw that dude again. I don't know what happened.
How many were there?
But,
I mean, you guys, how many of you guys were there?
Well, it was the team. So let me see. We got Oz, myself, Jack. Then we had the 3 GRS guys from Tripoli. We had our country team leader, our base team leader, which was 10, and then the 2 Dboys, and then one interpreter. So 13. It's not the weirdest. It was 13 of us waiting there for a plane, and we didn't know. We had no
Libya.
idea.
It was a Libyan plane, yeah.
As a Libyan Air Force.
So you were on the ground for an hour. A Libyan plane showed up. You said it's an hour flight back to Tripoli.
Yeah.
What I mean, what was the first things when you got on that plane and you guys took off? Like, what were you thinking at that time when the wheels came up? What was going through your mind that first 5 minutes?
I was honestly just happy that we got out of there, because that plane didn't show up for us. It just showed up. I always said testament to God and faith, and you guys that follow me, you know that. I always tell people, have faith, because it always increases your luck. It's amazing how much, if you have faith and believe in God, that, hey, your luck increases. People call that blessings as well, but I call it, hey, it just increases. So, guys, that plane just showed up, and that's what we didn't put in them. We didn't.
Well, you were expecting it to show up, right?
No. It's like,
I remember. No idea.
We had no idea. I kept going to my team leaders and saying, hey guys,
but did you have communication at that point? So when you were at the airport, you guys were on the ground there. Who were you talking to?
We had communication with each other, but our GRS staff guys, our country team leader and our base team leader, took over the communication to the CI headquarters.
So they were working on getting.
So they were working on it. Yeah, and we were just trusting them to have that, it, but I remember I kept going up to my team members going, hey, what plane's coming? And I kept getting this every time. And even when that plane showed up, I looked at the tail boom guys, and I did say that. I looked at it and I went, I was still no Americans. I mean, disgustingly, honestly, he played that. That was so spot on, because that's what I did. I was like, shit, still no Americans. Yeah. And I went to my team leader and I said, is that for us? And he goes, I don't know. And they actually parked, turned their engines off. And I remember we went down there and talked them into flying us out. So that's how my recollection.
Did they know why they were there?
Well, the Libyan Air Force was going. So they had their pad there. They had a Libyan Air Force side of that terminal where beneath it. So that's where they lived. That was their spot.
So they were there specifically to get you. It wasn't like they were there on another mission or something. You guys hooked a ride back to Tripoli.
They were not there to specifically get us. They were doing something and they flew back in because there was a firefight they heard in the town, and they just got called back in. It was not to come pick us up.
How'd you get them to take a Libyan aircraft and fly you guys to Tripoli? Did somebody pay them?
Dollar bills, brother. Yeah, we got money. We got money, and we had a ton of money, and so that's how things get done in the Middle East, North Africa.
Whose money was it? Who had the money?
We have agency. We get money for that. So when
so it was cash, you guys had a lot of cash.
It's just cash money, or there's always two. There's always, hey, we'll pay you once we get to such an area. And when we are in control of that country, the locals trust that, because they know where there's an embassy or there's an annex or somewhere where they can go and say, hey, you owe us money. So I didn't see the hand chase, but I knew money was paid. I didn't see our team leader take the money out and say, here's money. But I knew that's what, because we were discussing it with them. Hey, we'll pay.
After the fact, did anybody there tell you that, we were working on it? They were working on getting us an aircraft, or they were working on it? But did you know who was going to come? I mean, obviously that plane showed up. They weren't there to get you guys, and you used it, but you didn't know if there was.
I had no idea. And when we're sitting on that tarmac, and you don't know, you just maintain. You're just like, well, you trust. And at that point, I still trusted my leaders. I still trusted the agency and the Army, the Department of Defense. Because every time I got caught in a situation, I never got caught in a situation that horrendous, but every time we got caught, we need support, something would come and get us. And, that's why we put in the movie where Tig said, hey, we're in Iraq, a Black Hawk would come get us out of that shit. Well, did Tig say that exactly? No, but we put that in the movie because that was our experiences in Iraq
Oh,
and
I got you.
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, so a lot of the movie is like we say statements that are coming from all of us, and we try to put it where it may not be the exact statement that person said, but it's the feeling that we all have gone through. And
Okay.
so I
So
assumed a U.S. aircraft would eventually come. That's when I saw the black and green and red flag. I was like, still no
at
Americans.
that
And
point, I'd take any ride. Piper
on that,
Cub
and
could
that's
have showed up. I would have been on it.
that's how it was.
Yeah.
And
Well, when
but it
wheels went
was
up, what was your first thoughts in your mind as soon as the wheels went up on the airplane?
yeah, and forgive me to Glenn's family, and I'm not trying to do this to because I love Bub. Bub's a hero, and his family's a hero. Katie's a hero, and his brother, mother, he's tremendous, and he deserves. But why I'm going to tell you guys, I don't tell a lot of people. That's why I have before, and I've it's out there in some aspects, but I don't say it often because it's hard for me to talk about. But I'll tell you guys that I remember we got on the plane and we didn't have body bags for Ronan and Bub, so we had sheets covered them. We had blankets and sheets. And I know the movie showed us zipping them up, Ronan in a body bag. We weren't able to do that till we actually got to Tripoli. So we had him on the floor of that C-130, living C-130, and rigor mortis had sit in on Bub, so his arm was up like this. So the blankets, he's laying down, the blankets were covering him, the sheets, but his arm was sticking out. And I remember as we took off, I'm looking at it going, it's like the elephant in the room. I'm like, does nobody else see this? Because it's a little bit disturbing, and it's your friend and a teammate. And to me, it was like disrespectful to have him fly all the way for the next hour with his arm sticking out like this out of that sheet. I remember I looked over at Jack and Roan and I mean Jack and Tig, and they were out. They were tired. Everybody was tired, of course. The Dboys, I'm looking at it, and Dboys they're kind of like not looking at it. You know, when you want to look at something, but you don't want to show anybody you're looking. So there's kind of, and I was like, I did. I went, fuck it. And I walked over to it and I broke his arm. I just broke I slammed it down and I I remember just hearing just everything I just because I couldn't see us flying the whole way with it up in the air. You know, I couldn't like a tent. And I remember slamming it on the ground and not viciously or maliciously, but those tendons, you gotta, when rigor mortis sits in, you gotta break all that stuff. And I remember I got it pinned down on the arm, and it came, not that it dislocated or anything funky happened where it looked disgusting, nothing like that. I got it down, the tendons snapped. I heard some tendons snap in there, and I was able to get it flat, and I laid the sheet over it, so he was covered the whole way. And that was honestly, that, even though that probably took 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes, probably 5 minutes is all. I don't remember the rest of the flight outside of that. I don't remember. I remember.
There's no conversations or anything like that?
No, it was quiet. It was, especially after that, it was very quiet. And I remember I went and sat back down just like this, and I went, and that's all I remember.
What was that plane? Was it a big cargo plane with
C-130? Yeah, it was a
like
C-130. No, it was actually a C-130 that the Libyan Air Force had. I'm sure it was something we had given to them at some point, but it was a Libyan C-130, and it was a little rickety. It reminded me of that plane. If you ever watched the first Major League with Charlie Sheen, where the pilot's out there taping up the like,
there you go.
But yeah, that is my main remembrance, and it was quiet. Yeah, it was very, very quiet. Nobody said a word the whole flight back. Nobody said anything. Yeah.
Okay, and you said that was an hour flight, yeah?
It's about an hour. Yeah, from Tripoli to Benghazi, it's about an hour flight.
Okay, so when you first landed, pulled up on the tarmac there, I mean, where did you actually pull up to, though?
There's a major airport in Tripoli. Tripoli is the capital of Libya. So the airport there's, they actually had commercial flights coming in from different countries. Lufthansa, I believe, was still flying into there. So we landed. There was a military private airport side, and we landed there.
So it was our base, though, right?
It's the airport's. No, the airport's for the city. The airport is for everybody. The airport was open for business. And but we had, and like a lot of those airports, when we come to these countries, Afghanistan was the same way with Kabul. You know, you had Baghdad, you had VVIP, which was really the mill air side for when you're going flying into Baghdad. There was always a U.S. private side where military aircraft could come in and land, or if you had delegations coming in, like what we call a CODEL, a cooperative delegation, where you've got congressmen and ambassadors coming in, they would go park on that side. Is the airport still going? But you have it's more secure. You know, you can secure it. And so we had a secure side on that Tripoli side, on that Tripoli airport. And I can't remember the name of the Tripoli airport. Benghazi's was called Benina. I don't remember Tripoli's. I think it was called Tripoli Airport, Tripoli International. But we parked, and I remember the ramp going down. And I'll be honest, brother, I wasn't thinking anything at all, but I just need a shower. I need a shower. I need some food. I'm tired. And there were people waiting for us. And of course the agency's there, and you get off the plane. And I remember they're just looking at you like how you're going to react. They're just, because a lot of these, most of the people, if not all of them there at the agency base, had never been through shit before. They never had anything. They never had a bullet cracked by their head. And I don't think any of them ever expected something like that to happen either. So really what they're looking at, and this is how I felt, whether it was correct or not, is we're kind of being looked at as anomalies. They're looking at us like, okay, how do we act with these guys? They just went through hell. They saved a lot of.
So they knew when before you guys got there, they knew what happened.
Oh yeah, it's the Tripoli base. That's where Bub came from. That's where Bub and the other 3 GRS operators, the Delta guys, were from. That was the main base. That was who we called first. It's like, hey, if we're going to get assistance and we're going to get help, we need our main base to be calling up to DC and help. And that's where John Hicks was. And that's
but that plane was, that plane didn't know it was going to take you guys there.
It sounded like
no, but when you landed, they already kind of knew that was you guys.
No, when we got on the plane, no, we briefed them like, hey, this is what we're doing. And we did have another interpreter there at Benghazi, not just Henry, not just a mall. His real name's Henry. That's his pseudo, guys. I'm not giving you his real name because he's still working. But we also had another interpreter at Benina named Amal, that we called Amal, and he was our expediter at Benghazi Airfield. So he was able, and we also had a translator, a combat terp that came in from Tripoli with us. So they were able to tell really what's going on. And yeah, they still are talking on the radio. So they're still, hey, we got a plane coming. And I'll be honest, that worried me a little bit, because I thought, well, here we go. We're going to fly up on this Libyan plane, and we're going from Benghazi to Tripoli, and we're going to get shot down with an SA-7 because the freaks aren't secure. But keep in mind as well, we also did have SINGAR radios, and we also had SATCOM radios that we could call our main base there in Tripoli and let them know what's going on. So there was communication going on from the flight from Benghazi to Tripoli. So when we landed, no, they had that area prepped. So it was prepped, ready to go.
Who was waiting for you when you get off the plane? Who was the first people you saw?
The first people I saw was shit. Honestly, the guys I remember seeing Bob. I remember seeing the girl, the girl that was with us there in Benghazi.
So they were already on the ground because they went in the Gulf Stream before.
They were in the Gulf Stream, yeah. I do remember there was a targeter, we call him a targeter at Tripoli. It was another girl that was there. I remember her looking at me. She gave me a hug, and I really didn't want it. But I remember that as well. And then I remember just getting in a vehicle. I'll be honest, Brian, I don't remember who drove me from the airport in Benghazi. We drove back to our annex there in Tripoli, the main base, this main CIA base, Tripoli. I don't remember who drove us. I'm stretching right now trying to remember. I cannot remember who got us there.
All right, so you're saying, you mean from the plane to?
From the plane, yeah. When we got to the Benghazi, when we got to the Tripoli airport, and I do remember it was a van. I did get in a van. It was an armored van that we had there because that was the main base, and would bus a lot of people back and forth. We got in that van and we drove back to the Tripoli base, our main CIA base, the annex in Tripoli.
How far was that?
It took like 2-3 minutes. It wasn't that long.
So close to the airport.
Yeah, we are.
What did you have with you at that point? I mean, just your weapons and that's it, or?
Well, I was I was one of the only ones that didn't have time to go down to get all my crap before we left. So I left the computer there. I left a hard drive. I left a lot of my clothes there. All I had was the clothes on me. So I was wearing my shorts. I was wearing my Mickey Mouse shirt. I wouldn't let go of my rifle. I know guys were I was like, nope, I'm holding on to this thing. So I had my rifle still. I had my Magpul magazine. So I had 2 magazines on my rifle. I still had some magazines in my pocket. I wasn't wearing my Rhodesian and all my kit anymore. I did down my body armor. I was just done with it. Took my body armor.
You still have that rifle?
No, that's an agency issued rifle. It's
Okay.
like it's their right. I wish, yeah, that'd be awesome to have it, but no, and I just remember thinking, man, I need to take a shower. I was just like, man, I need to take a shower. I need some food. I'd love to get some food. I'm starving, and that was in my mind.
But when you got off the plane, you said the first ones were, I think her name was Amanda and Bob. Is that what her name was?
Well, we had Bob, I can't give you the
station
girls,
chief.
the station chief,
Yeah.
the girl that
Was
played
anybody from our military there, or who
not
else
at that
was on the
time.
ground?
No, we were
What were
waiting.
the first things they said to you?
Just good job.
That was
I
it?
mean, it was really more than anything. They didn't know what to say. Again, that's why I remember them just
So they're
looking
still
at
in
us like
shock.
we were in anomalies. Like they were looking at us going, what do we say to these guys? And it wasn't a bad thing. I'm not saying it was negative. It wasn't bad. It was just, I mean, what do you say? You see somebody, what do I tell? Hey, good job, man. Good game. I mean, what do you tell? And that's fine with me too, but they didn't know how to react. Is this what I got? Or, on a more seedy level. And I don't want to think it's this, because I do think people have a lot of good in them. I think the bad comes out later. But if you want to be pessimistic about it, they're thinking a lot of the people, especially the head shit, and our deputy chief was there as well, at Tripoli, is like, how are we going to spin this? These guys are alive. We got dead bodies. We also, like I said, we had our dead there. So my worry, well, and to go back a little bit, honestly, all of our worries were at that point when we got off, and now you're really ringing a bell here, is we want to make sure Ron and Bub's bodies were taken care of, because it was on a Tripoli plane. And I remember going to, I just don't remember who the hell it was. And it was somebody from the CIA base there in Tripoli. And I said, hey man, what's going to happen to the bodies? And they said, we're going to take care of them. We got an Air Force. And they did. They said, we got a C-17 coming in. It's a J-Mal bird. It's a bird that you can do. They're going to have a medical doctor in there. So for Dave and Oz, and I said, well, we're going to have these guys in flag draped coffins. What are we doing? They said, yeah, they're bringing coffins. We're going to put flags on them. They're going to be taken care of. They said, don't worry about it. You go take care of yourself. We got this. And it was an American that I can't remember who it was. And I think it pisses me off. I should remember that, who it was.
Because also too, is reality at that point, you guys weren't in the forces. So you were retired at that point, right? You were out.
Well, we were all contractors. Yeah, we were all.
That's what I was wondering, like, how you guys treated when you got back and stuff, whether you're in versus being out, your contractors at that point.
Well, there's less pomp and circumstance. So there's less going and talking to, hey, here's a chief. It's like, hey, it's me. It's like, I want to take a shower. I need some food. After I felt comfortable, and we all felt comfortable that they were going to take care of Ron and Bub. And I remember that. I remember Jack specifically. Jack was a great guy. Jack is an awesome guy. He really took the lead on that. And I remember he was like, guys, they got this. And if Jack said they had the bodies, then I trust it, because Jack's just a great soul. But once
that did happen though, right? They took care of it.
Yeah. Well, that comes later. That comes, if you want to get to that later, that comes later. But we got back, and it was more of, hey, leave me, in the military, I got to go talk to this leader, this leader, this leader. It was, leave me the fuck alone. I just want to shower, get me back to the annex in Tripoli. And then I'm going to handle my, and that's how it was with being a contractor. It was, I don't have to go talk to any of these people. I just saved your ass, or we just saved your ass. Leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you guys. Just get me back to the annex so I can shower. And get some food and get some.
So when you got back to the annex, what was the first people you saw?
Actually, I saw some of my GRS buddies there. I can't give you their names because they're
Yeah, I
still
got you.
working,
But
but
were you able to
that's,
keep your firearm with you at that point? I mean, at some
yeah,
point
yeah.
they must have took it from you, right?
No, I kept it. No, and we were,
Okay.
that was one thing with GRS and ground branch, whether you're with the GB guys, which is the SAD, the Special Activities Division of the CIA, or GRS, which is the Security Division, we're allowed a lot of things that maybe some people out on the base are, because of our backgrounds and experience, and because of the jobs we do, and because if there's a attack on the base, obviously like the annex, we're the ones reacting to it. So our guns are not being put away in some armory. If
Okay.
I want to keep my gun by my bed, I'm keeping it by my bed. So, and they trust us with that. So yeah, no, I didn't let it go. I remember one of my GRS buddies, I said, hey, do you guys have a room for us so we can get showered? And they did. Our GRS team in Tripoli took very, very good care of us. They already had a room set up for me, for all of us. So we had to share, but it's just how it was. Not a lot, you have to maximize space. They had rooms for us. One of my buddies there, he's still working, great guy. He had clothes because he knew I didn't have any clothes. He already had some clothes. They didn't fit me, but he had a white t-shirt. I remember this. He had a white t-shirt for me. He had some khakis, some khakis like 511s, tack pants set out for me. So I had some clothes. And I remember also I went right to the chow hall. They had rice and chicken and stuff fixed for us.
So
I
you,
went and got
but you
food.
took a shower. So you took a shower at that point and changed?
I ate first, then I took a shower and changed, and then I fell asleep for 2 hours.
So
I say 2 hours, but I think it was more like
what was the first conversation you had when you got there before you took a shower and ate and all that?
we're the first I remember.
The first conversation, like
the first,
with
the
anybody,
first,
like what went on, or did you have to
yeah,
get
yeah.
into
No, and
anything?
I remember specifically even walking in. You know, with the movie where you see Bob shake Jack's hand in the movie 13 Hours, and Bob says, I was proud to know Americans like you. He didn't say that, but what he did, and this is where I remember, and this is where we got that from. When we got to Tripoli, he was standing outside where I was walking to get a chow hall, and he shook my hand and he goes, hey man, thanks. And I didn't say a word to him. I honestly, I wanted to say, fuck you. And I couldn't, because I don't know, maybe it was still having some military bearing. Maybe it was like, you're not worth it. But I remember shook his hand because I really felt it was empty, and it was honestly. So I shook his hand. That's what I remember, because I remember looking in his eyes and being like, yeah. And I walked off and I got some food. Then another agency staffer there in Tripoli, she goes, what happened? And I didn't want to, I was like, I don't want to talk about it. And I didn't want to talk about what happened. And I went and sat down, and I got my bowl. I had a bowl. I put some rice and chicken in it. I sat down. I had a coffee. I wanted coffee bad. I had a ton of coffee. I love coffee, guys, obviously. And I sat down, just like you see me here. And it was like, where you sit down, you eat, and you're like, I don't want nobody to, you get that aura, like, leave me the fuck alone. Nobody talk to me. That's how it was. I was just here. I'd ate, and then I went and sat down on the stairs outside, because there's a set of stairs that you walk down out of that annex. I had Copenhagen. I took some out of my pocket. I hit the can. I put some in, and actually somebody took a photo of this. I posted every once in a while on 9/11. I had a Yankees hat on. I had my sunglasses on. I had a white, the clothes that my buddy had given me. And I sat down, and I just sat there and had a dip, and just kind of like, that's when I like kind of started to take it all in. It's like, okay, what the hell just happened?
So how long at that point? How long were you on the ground?
About an hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Yeah, and we were waiting. Now we were getting word that a U.S. aircraft was coming in, and it was a C-17 was coming in. Like I said before, was loading up the flag grade coffins. It was coming in. It had a surgeon on there and it was going to fly us to Germany. And it was flown by Lieutenant Colonel. He's probably Colonel now. Eric Stahl, great guy. If you ever talk to you guys, we might. Honestly, he'd be great for E3 Aviation. I just don't have his contact information, but Eric Stahl. And that C-17 was, so we were just waiting. We were waiting, like, yeah, you guys are going to get out of here. And they kept telling us, but we didn't give us a time frame. So after I had that dip, I went back to the room, and I laid on a single. It was just one of those single beds, and I just fell asleep. And I got woken up saying, "Hey, it's time to go to the airport."
How long was that when you guys finally got back to the airport?
45 minutes to an hour.
So you're on the ground for a total of about 3 hours there?
Yeah, about between 2 and 3. Yeah, we were waiting,
Okay.
and you
So
know,
that time frame was really non-eventful. There wasn't a whole lot going on then, right? Just
it's
kind of
more.
regrouping.
It's all it is. But that's. I don't think people realize when you've been doing it for that long. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this shitty thing happened. It was all right. That's the job, and that's the mindset of all of us. It was okay. The job. We just did our job. I just need some rest. All right, they're going to fly us out to Germany. We weren't pushing to go to Germany either. We were like, hey, we weren't pushing to leave. We're like, hey, what's the plan? And because that was essentially, we don't have a base now. What's the plan with us? Are we staying here for another 2 months? Are you flying us out? So it wasn't like, hey, you need to get us out of here. It was, hey man, that's the job. Let's just go with the flow. What's next?
So
And I think all
so
of
you
us
knew
had
you
that.
didn't know when you were going to leave. You were just waiting at that point.
Yeah, we're just waiting, and
Okay.
and we didn't know if it was that, and we didn't care. Again, it wasn't that, and I want people to know this, especially, and that's why I admire those guys that are still doing these kind of jobs. When stuff like that happens, that's just the job, you
Yeah,
know.
right.
And it's not, gosh, this awful thing happened. I deserve to go home. I need to go home now. It was, no, okay, what's next? Do
Right,
you
right,
get,
right.
and a lot, and I was asked like, hey, do you guys need us? I remember asking, I know what Tig asked, I know Jack, it's like, hey guys, you guys need us for an op tonight? You guys got anything going on? If you guys need us, we're here. If you need bodies, we're here. We'll run out, because we're ready to start going back to work and start running ops back in Tripoli, because, and I'd worked in Tripoli before, and it was a fun city to to work in. So, and that's not a bravado thing either. It's just you have to have your
Yeah, you got
mindset
to
where
keep
it's like,
going.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, uh, my the Black Hawk Down
Worst
is
thing is to sit there and be thinking about it for
when you
hours. It's like get back to
can't.
work. Yeah. What
And
were you when you just said you sat there and it was the first time you started to kind of internalize what just happened. I mean, now that it seems like you became a little more conscious.
yeah, I got you.
What was going through your brain at that
It,
point when you kind of sat quietly for a second and started to think about it?
it wasn't, and I don't know, people probably think, was that the time where you're like, oh, who left us behind? I wasn't even think that was not the farsing from mind. It was just me ARing in my head what happened. Okay, what could I have done better when we went to the annex? When I was moving over those walls, what could I have done better? I didn't get shot, but where did I make a mistake? It was more going over tactical things and technical things on the actual night and how I could perform better. It wasn't,
So
and then
you weren't even thinking yet about,
no,
boy,
no,
now what's
fuck
going to
no,
happen? Shit's
no.
going to hit the fan. What?
I never gave two shits about politics when I was working. You can't. Who gives a that politicians are dirty, they're disgusting, they're awful.
Well,
And
besides the
I don't care.
politics though, Tonto, I mean,
Yeah.
did you kind of at least be thinking, now what's going to happen with my agency or now with,
No,
what's going to
no, I
happen
knew
with the military?
no, I knew I was, because I did my job. I did it well. We all did it well. The team, I say but we as a team did it well. I wasn't, I think one thing that did stick out in my head was seeing a mortar round, seeing 5 mortar rounds hit near you under night vision. I kept seeing that in my head, because that's something you don't see with night vision very often. People don't see it and live to talk about it. And I was going through that, and just like, it wasn't a flashback. It was boom, and I'd hear the boom, and I think it was coming accustomed, like, hey, all right, that happened. If it happens again, you know what how to handle it.
Yep.
All right. And it wasn't a panic thing. It was just, I think my brain was taking it all in. So if I had to go through it again, I knew how to handle it. I knew what to expect.
Right,
And I think that's more than anything. Again, we talked about experience and wisdom and maturity. I think I was maturing. I was thinking a little bit about, well, yeah, I was still cussing my head out. I was cussing Bob out, my team leader that was there at the trip at Benghazi
But
with
what
me.
was your biggest issue with him? I mean, obviously we see the movie and stuff, but what were you really thinking when you were in the shitstorm going on? What was going through your mind about that and the leadership and stuff? What were you
I didn't
thinking?
really think about it when it was going. What I thought about when they failed us at the beginning, when they told us not to go at the very, very beginning, and we bucked orders and went. As far as I was concerned, whatever they said meant shit to me, and that's how it was. I when I came back,
But at what point did you get to where you felt like, hey, this was just terrible leadership and that bothered you the most? When did you kind of realize that and recognize that?
9:55 that night when they wouldn't let us go. I knew it then. We all knew it then, and that's why we we commandeered. I call bottom up leadership. We took over, and the team did, not me, but the team. We had tremendous leaders on that team, and it was then. But that's why whenever the rest of the night we took orders. I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff real quick, but the majority of the decisions we said, hey, Roan, you got this, man. We trust you. You're our assistant team leader. You make the decisions. We're not listening to these guys anymore. We were hoping and depending on them to get us support, but we knew they probably weren't going to, but we weren't going to beat ourselves up about it. You're just wasting time. You worry about that too much. You're expending energy on things you have no control of. What do we have control of? We have control of our rifles. We have control of our weapon systems. We have control of our team. We can kick the shit out of those guys. That's what we have control of right now. Let's keep beating them up and defending them.
If you act fast, that's the key.
And that was where we
give them time. But how long was it from the time you knew the shit was going down with the ambo? How long was it before you guys finally said, that's it, we're out of here?
That 25-minute mark of us sitting there waiting. And
so how long before you knew the shit hit the fan between when he said stand down?
Honestly, we had the gut feelings just from working, and I've worked with Bob and my Benghazi team leader before in different areas, so I knew that we really couldn't depend on. We knew that prior to, because Bob, and if you've watched the movie Benghazi, that 13 hours, where Bob didn't let us go to help Roan and Jack. That actually happened. It was just at nighttime. It wasn't during the daytime. And Tyrone bluffed his way out of that stand down, not stand down, but the guns drawn with the enemy. That happened. So and it happened one other time as well that we didn't talk about because it was months prior to that. Bob would never let us go help our own people. So we already knew that, hey, when he said you guys aren't going, we're like, okay, well, we're definitely.
So so you already had history to know.
Yeah, we and my Benghazi team leader. You know what? My mom said if I got nothing good to say about somebody, don't say anything at all.
Yeah, so let's fast forward, because we're supposed to be in the 14-hour area. But so you guys finally got woke up. Hey, we're jumping on the plane. Now you're going to Germany, right? Basically.
Yeah.
And what happened between that and you getting on the plane? What conversations did you have?
No, my whole thing was, all I had on my head was while we were driving to the airport, I need to talk to the Air Force loadmaster so she lets us load the flag grade coffins on the plane. That was my mindset the whole time. I remember that's one thing I remember.
Was there any conversations you had on the way back to the airport with anybody?
Oh, no, just quiet. No, it was, I mean, there might've been some idle chit chat, but it wasn't anything. Oh, these dudes screwed us over, or, hey, high five, or great. No, it was just.
So we're like now about 4 hours. Now you're heading to you said a C7 came in? C-17.
And I remember she was awesome. The Air Force loadmaster on that C-17. I went up to her, and normally they don't let anybody outside of themselves load things onto the plane. And I thought I was gonna have to argue with her. And I walked up to her and I said, hey, ma'am, these are our buddies. We lost them just a few hours ago. Can we load their flag grade coffins along with the ambassador and Sean's coffins on the plane? And she was awesome. She goes, I know what happened. I'll help you guys. You guys do what you need to do. And
so she knew about the whole incident.
The scuttlebutt, the word, maybe she did. Maybe when we're putting those radio frequencies out for help, that is going everywhere around every base is hearing it. Every CIA outlet's hearing it. So she might have known more than what she was telling me. I thought she just knew because, hey, man, these guys just went in shit. They've been sitting there for a while. They need to know what they're coming to pick up. I'm sure somebody briefed them on why they were there. How much she knew, though, Brian, I don't know if she knew more than what she was saying. But
so how many were back on that plane heading to Germany? Because 13 came out of
13. We all, and I thought it was kind of odd. It was just us contractors that flew out. All the staffers stayed and I thought that was odd. I remember going,
why now?
Yeah, because they were flying David Petraeus out to get debriefed there in Tripoli. He was the CIA director at the time. They were flying him out to get debriefed by just the staffers and not us. They flew us out so they could debrief David Petraeus, the CIA director, with just them without having us giving our side of the story.
You know why? But why would they not?
They were already formulating the.
So they're getting their message out.
They're already starting to formulate that message, man. The video nothing else could be done. And they were already trying to formulate it. The one thing that did happen, we did have a targeter. She was our targeter in Benghazi. She just happened to be in Europe that evening when we got attacked. She was actually very, very good. Her name's Sarah Adams. She wrote, her and Boone wrote another book about finding the people that attacked us. She's tremendous. She's one of the best targeters I've ever been with the agency. She actually stayed because she was a staffer, and she actually told David Petraeus, the director, that the information he was getting from the staffers there in Tripoli was wrong, and that and she handed him a piece of paper that said, this is what happened. And she was subsequently let go. I wouldn't say not 6 months later, she was gone. And she backed, but that's looking back. I didn't think anything of it then. I really didn't, but looking back on it now, I'm like, oh shit, those sons of bitches. Okay, yeah. But
so you guys jumped on the plane. How long was the flight to Germany?
Oh man, I don't even remember. It was a little while. 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours. It was a pretty good.
Many conversations go on in that plane, or did you guys sleep, or what?
I remember looking at Oz, and he was in his gurney. I got a picture of it. Honestly, I took a picture of it. I won't post it though. But he just gave me a thumbs up. I remember that. I remember sitting next to Jack and Boone. I do remember there was also, and I didn't mention this earlier because it just slipped my mind. When we got to Benghazi, when we came from off the annex and we were catching that RC-130, there were 2 Americans that just showed up on the airfield. I don't know who the hell they were. I still to this day have no idea who these 2 Americans were. They showed up at the airfield in Benghazi. Guys, I'm going way back now. I'm just trying to fill in the story here.
Right.
They showed up in Benghazi. They pulled up, and I looked at them, and there's 2 Americans get out of this car, and they're like, can we go with you guys? We just heard, and I didn't know who the fuck they were. My team leaders did. So I just assumed they were okay. Well, coming back to that C-17 flight, they were sitting the way down the cargo netting from me. I'm looking at them, and I'm still to this day have no idea who the fuck they were. I'm looking at them going, who the fuck are you guys? I remember they were all 5'11" out, older guys. I don't know if they worked for the agency. I think that has a lot to do with the story and could probably shed more light on what happened to us. In hindsight now, I wish I would have went and talked to them. I didn't, because I really didn't care who they were at the time. But looking back on it now, I'm like, damn, I really wish I would have went at least asked those guys who the hell they were. Because that's something that has never been put out there. It's never been told. It's never been seen. I actually have pictures of the 2 guys because I took a picture of Boone and Jack like this as we were sitting next to each other flying, and you can see him off in the background.
You should post something like,
I know,
who are these 2 guys? Somebody tell me who these 2 guys are.
I still to this day have no idea who those 2 Americans are. They weren't with us. They didn't live at the annex. Right. They just showed up at the airport.
Okay. So between getting on the C-130 and getting onto the C-17, was there any point that you called home?
Yeah, actually, I called home at Benin at the airfield before we even got to Tripoli.
So before the C-130.
Yeah. We all had a.
How long was that call?
2-3 minutes. If you've watched the movie again, 13 hours, and you see the call from Jack home, that scene is a compass of all of our phone calls. Really, we put that together. It really, and that's all of our phone calls. We're like that. It's like, hey, you're going to see this on the news. I'm fine. Yeah, we lost Ron and Bob, and all of us had a similar phone call. That scene in that movie I cry every time. Damn it, I cry every time because I remember that feeling of and my wife's, and it was all our phones. We had burner phones, for those are phones that are open. You can they're not secure, so that's why they were brief calls, because they were secure. They were non-secure phones. So I called. I said, I'm fine. I'll call you, and I can call you again probably when I get to. And I didn't know who.
What did she say?
She'd been doing it for. She'd been a military wife and a CIA wife for 18 years at that point. She just said, "Okay, I love you," and I said, "I love you too," and we hung up. And
so at that point, she had no clue what was going on.
No, she didn't. She saw something on the TV, and she knew that I was in Libya. She didn't know specifically. They know where you're going. The family, as much as wives. They say, oh, I don't tell him I'm going secret. Bullshit. None of you guys are a super secret. You're not doing that stuff. Your family, somebody knows where you're at within the family. She may not know what I'm doing or the specific location, but she knows the country I was at. Yeah, she knew.
Okay.
So
Now,
yeah,
did you call it before you get on the C-17 at all?
no, after that, because at that time, you're still thinking OPSEC. You're still thinking, I don't want anybody tracking these phones. Man, they still have surface to air missiles. They could have stingers because maybe they did, maybe they didn't have stingers that they were getting from. Maybe it's like, I don't want to get. I've gotten through all. What you think? I guess what I'm thinking in my head as we're on with that C-130 or that C-17 is, man, wouldn't it be terrible to get through all this and all of a sudden be taking off and get shot down by a surface to air missile? And that's always in the back. I'll be honest. And those guys that have worked in other of these countries, whether it's Afghanistan or Iraq, whenever you're leaving a country, that does go through your head. It does, like, damn, wouldn't that suck? And so I'm just thinking, let's get out of this airspace. My thing, when we're taking off, the coffins look great. Everybody's good. Oz is over there. The doc's working on him. Dave Ubin, he's out. They put him out because it's late. They're trying to save Dave, but he looks stabilized. It's like when we got on the plane, everything kind of just calmed down. It's like everything went. You could go, and now it still is a little bit like this, not like this, but just a little tense because I'm waiting to get out of that airspace, because then I can go, okay, we're not going to get shot down.
That's basically what you're thinking then at that point, right? Wheels up out of the airspace.
And that was probably about 30 minutes after we took off. Then I was like, okay, we're good.
Did they tell you that, or did you just know? Did they come on?
You could see. Yeah, you can always see it. Whether, like I said, flight attendants, if something's going wrong, you can watch them. If it's normal, they're going to be so relaxed. If it's not, they're going to get panicked. Loadmasters are the same way on an Air Force airplane. On an Air Force plane, the loadmaster, I'm just watching her. And if she's continually doing her normal checks and stuff, I know we're good to go. If she starts pinging and going faster or starts moving in sudden dynamic movements, something's wrong. And we're going to have to start taking evasive movers and start shooting chaffs out because we're getting targeted by surface to air missiles. And she was perfect. And so that's what I do. She was fine. The docs were fine. There was a doctor on the airplane that he was fine, or it may have been a physician's assistant.
So that flight was pretty non-eventful then.
It was very relaxing,
kind of quiet, and
it was quiet. I put my headphones in, and I listened to. I listened to country at that time. Whenever I went home, there were different songs I listened to. I listened to Motley Crue, "Home Sweet Home," and I listened to Blake Shelton, "Home," and that's what I was. That's kind of my playlist that I'm listening to as we're heading out. Just okay, I'm going home.
So you guys landed in Germany. What were who were the first people you saw when you landed there?
Well, we got off a plane. First people that came up to me, and I remember actually we got off a plane and they started to load us onto a bus to take us to a hangar, and a general got on there. I didn't know who the hell he was. Never seen him before. It was General Ham. I didn't know who General Ham was. He gets on and he goes, and this is after everybody got off and we were still on, all us GRS guys were still on. He got on the bus to talk to us and said, I didn't know that he left us behind at that point. I probably would have had some, some more choice words for him. I didn't know. As far as I knew, they'd done everything they could for us, and so he said, he's like, hey guys, good job. We can take you taken care of. And I remember I still had my M4. I still had my M4. I had a magazine. I took the magazine out, but I asked the loadmaster, can I carry this on? I'm not letting this thing go until we get to Germany. She said, that's fine. Just take the magazine out, take the bullet out. I'm going to let you hold on to it. And I remember I still had 4 magazines in my pockets because I wouldn't let them go. I had them in my new pants pockets. I had my M4, my HK still, and I had a magazine in my hand. And I went up to the general as we got to Germany. I said, sir, I said, is there an amnesty box anywhere? Because I still got a bunch of ammo and my M4. And he said, yeah. And I turned in. It got back to the agency, so I amnestied all that stuff. And
so that was the first thing you said to them, or?
Yeah, the first thing was I said, is there an amnesty box anywhere so I can get rid of this ammo? And just to let you know, I've still got firearms on me. And is there any way I could turn it? And he said, yeah, we got you. It was no issue at all. He was like, yeah, actually, I think General Ham, Ranger tabbed, and he's a combat arms guy. And he, honestly, I kind of noticed a little smile on him, like, yeah, fucking Ranger. but what,
so we're going to get into some fun stuff about this now, but I do, because we're coming up on the the hour mark, and I just want to tell everybody. And so, just so everybody knows, we will have a part 2. And by the way, we have a lot of people that aren't E3 members with us that are on today, Kris. And I just want to make sure you all know, first of all, thanks again, everybody, for coming here. And, what you're hearing now is just scratching the surface. If you could see, there's all kinds of training from Kris and the E3 Firearms platform. There's all kinds of shows, and there's just years of just incredible content and magazines and all that. So if you're not a member and you want to, make sure you come over and join us at e3firearmsassociation.com. And for everybody on this call or in this stream, just letting you know that you can use all capital or all lowercase, the promo code that's called trial. So you just use trial, and you can come in and get a couple of months free just to experience and actually come on some more of these live streams with us and hear more from Kris and Adam. And we have all kinds of incredible ambassadors and trainers and a lot of great stories and stuff. So I know we're going to get into the second half now, and I just want to make sure everybody knows, first of all, welcome everybody that's not a member. Come over and join us. There's a ton of great content, ton of fun, ton of education, ton of empowerment, ton of personal development. So come on over and join us. So, but now we're going to get into some, now the stuff's starting to shift a little bit. All that's over. And now it's like, so you saw General Ham, and what was the first kind of conversation that, other than that, what was the first conversations you started to have there?
The USO. The USO is amazing. Dang, I'm gonna start crying again. The hangar was set up. I had nothing. And I remember there was a lady that came up to us from the USO. I didn't know she was from the USO at the time, but a lady met us 5. And I'm sorry, us 4. And I remember we walked up, and first thing she said, and it felt like she was talking to me, but I know she was talking to all of us. She goes, what'd you lose? And I said, ma'am, I lost everything. And she goes, well, we got these tables set up, and it was it was probably like a 500 square foot room. And the USO had clothes and shoes and toiletries. And it was like, I'll be honest, it was like Christmas, man. It was, and it was just simple stuff, but it was like, you know what? It felt like, holy shit, somebody actually gives a shit.
Well, who would have made that happen, though?
The DOD, Army, USO. The USO would have made it happen. No,
Well, who would have called them and said, hey, these guys are coming in, take care of them?
As much as I don't care for General Ham, I'm sure he had a lot to do with that. So, I'm sure it was General Ham. I'm sure it was the C-17 that's coming in, Eric Stahl. If you ever can get him on, maybe he can tell you, maybe he made the call, but it wasn't the agency. I tell you that much. It was Department of Defense. And, there's Department of Defense is such a big organization. As many dirtbags are in Department of Defense, there's just as many great people in there as well. So I'm sure a great person said, hey, these guys don't have anything. And honestly, I think that also was customary for anybody that came out of a combat zone or came out of a direct mission or where combat was involved, and they flew into Landstuhl there. I'm sure that was like that was the modus operandi. That was the MO. That was what the USO did. Hey, people are coming in, they just been in combat. Let's get them set up and take care of them and make them feel at home. And they did that. It was awesome. I really felt good. I was like, not that I felt bad any other time, but that was where I actually smiled, like, man, this is, holy crap, these guys are awesome. So that's why I tell you guys, give the USO. You may think they're a money-making organization. I don't care what you think about them. As far as I think they're awesome. And so, I remember I grabbed some t-shirts. I didn't have no toiletries. So I grabbed some toothpaste. It was Colgate. I grabbed some Colgate. I grabbed toothbrush, some shampoo. They had every US base has Head and Shoulders. I got dandruff, so I got Heads and Shoulders. and I got some sweats, some USO sweats, and they were really nice. And
so how long was it before? So they were setting you up, getting you all connected. I mean, obviously they got your room or place to sleep and all that.
Yeah, they actually had a nice,
How long was it before now you started to have a serious conversation with somebody?
Well, 30 minutes of got that stuff. Then they drove us to a barracks. It was a nice hotel. It was an Air Force hotel. It was beautiful. I mean, so we got to the hotel. I honestly, I went to sleep. I don't know how long I slept for, not long. And that's when I turned the TV on. And when I turned the TV on, I remember the first thing that popped up was CBS. And I saw Susan Rice like that. And she's, and the tax on. I knew that it was going to be news, but I saw the first, can you imagine the first thing I see when I finally get to like a US kind of US civilization, as I see Susan Rice talking about a video in a protest. And I remember, because we all had our own rooms. We all were in that, like in a line. I remember finding Jack and going, holy shit, are you seeing this? And that's when I never thought of politics in my job before, ever. And that's when I was like, it really tainted the job. It tainted what I'd been doing for 18 years. It just in that moment.
So did it hit you at that point? You're like, okay, obviously, here we go. Game's on.
Well,
things are going to start happening.
I did initially, but then also because, because of my time with them, and because I never really paid attention to politics before, that was the first time seeing it. In my naivety, I'm going, they'll figure that no, that somebody's making a mistake. They're going to clear this up. This is not right. So I honestly, I turned it off. I wasn't going to watch that shit. I turned it off, and we went and got some breakfast. I don't even remember what I ate. I think we walked over to the base exchange there at the airport. It's a PX on.
So it was morning at this point. Then
it was morning. Yeah, morning in Germany. Okay. And so I don't know if that's a lot. Be honest, I can't tell you if it was. It probably wasn't a live stream. I was probably getting a recorded thing from Susan Rice that I'm watching on TV. So it doesn't matter, regardless. It's here nor there. And we have to, somebody knocks on, I go back to my room. I went to the base exchange. I got some candy, some goodies and stuff. Came back to my room. And as I sit down, somebody knocks on my door. And I'm thinking it's one of the guys. And I open the door. It's someone from the State Department. And they're like, yeah, we got a meeting in 15 minutes. You need to be there. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm not with State Department. Now, looking back on it, I wish I would have went to it. I didn't. No, we didn't have to go. We're agents. They didn't know who we were. So State Department started to have their little debrief meetings there at Germany.
Wait a minute. I want to ask you, have you called your wife yet again at this point?
Actually, I had my phone that I had some service. So I was able just to email her and text.
Okay.
So yeah, she knows what's going on. I said, I'm in Germany and yeah, she's, and I'm trying not to bother her too much because of the time difference, but yeah, you know what?
But did she connect the dots at that point when she saw TV versus what was going on?
She knew what was going on, and she's, I've got I had an AOL address at that time. For those that don't remember AOL, I've still got some of those saved emails actually between me and her when we were, and at that time too, that was because of cell phones weren't the cool things they are now. They weren't as good as they are now. It was honestly easier for me to get on a computer and my little laptop and email her. And that's what I generally did. And as long as we said I love you to each other when we got off, we were good. I didn't always have to talk to her like I did in the beginning. So an email said, I loved you. I said, I don't know when I'm gonna be home, but I'll be home at some point in time, but at least I said, I'm safe. I'm at an Army base. I'm at an Air Force base. And she's like, I love you. And, we had a little boy, little girl at the time too. Our boy was 8 and our girl was 4. So she's got her hands full just being a mom.
Did you have to be careful what you typed or put in emails or anything like that?
Yeah. It was,
but there was nothing classified at that point, right?
No, I didn't put like, they told us not to go, or hey, I didn't put like, hey, we're doing this kind of mission, or it was, hey, I'm here now, I'm safe. She knew what my job was, so she knew. Right. I didn't need to get in. You read between the lines. Yeah.
So State pounds on the door. So you don't go. So if you don't go, what was the next thing that happened?
We just hung out. To be honest with you, we waited and for 24 hours. Again, I'm still kicking myself. I wish I would have sat in those meetings. So I knew they were telling them they're trying to get the story.
Well, who was in that meeting?
All the State Department people.
Nobody from the scene though.
Nobody from Scott Wickland and the State Department officers, the security officers that we got out. Wickland, who was with the ambassador that lost the ambassador. And I don't blame him. Scott's a good guy. You can't blame Scott. You're getting burned alive. What would you guys do? I don't blame Scott at all.
Oh, and he was with the State Department,
and
right?
He's
so
State
he
Department
had to show up.
He had to go. Alec Henderson, who was in that the other State Department officer that was in their tactical operations center that was watching everything happen on the closed caption TV, or closed camera TV, or whatever the CCT stands for. And then the two other State Department officers that came with the ambassador from Tripoli, they went to
So they went in. So
But
you
I
know
did.
what the conversation was, what went down in that meeting?
Gosh, no. And that
Nobody's ever told you anything that came up?
No, I mean, once we got back, and we're skipping ahead a little bit, but once we got back to the States, the State Department guys were not allowed to talk to us. Nobody from State Department. They were actually told, and this was told to me by friends of Scott who were not able, Scott wasn't able to talk to us. I have a friend in Homeland Security. He actually is friends with Scott. It just happened to be that way. When I used to live in Omaha, he's like, yeah, they can't talk to you guys anymore. Well, okay, well, that's fine. I get it. But
Okay.
but
So
we did have
so you were there 24 hours before anything else happened?
a CI, one of our CIGRS staffers, great guy. I'm not going to give you his name. He was a ranger, and then he worked for CI. He was a staffer. He was a country team leader. Like, so on the GRS side, if you're a country TL, that means you're a pretty big high up wig in the security. He came to debrief us, and I remember, and I trusted. We all trusted. We'd worked with him downrange. He was not a staff. He did not have the staffers back. He had the operators backs. He was like what would you say, an enlisted man's officer, if you want to get a military lingo. And he came in and he says, okay, guys, what happened? And we went to his room. He flew to Germany to us, and we debriefed him right there.
How long was that meeting?
3 hours, 4 hours. We went through everything, detail by detail. And I still remember.
Did he ask a lot of questions?
Yeah, he did.
Did he allude to anything, or he just
no, he
walked
just
through it?
it was all an AAR, an after action review AAR. And at the end of it, honestly, he was asking a lot of questions at the beginning, and then he just got quiet, and he didn't say a word, and he just listened to us. And at the end of it, he started crying. And it was pretty, it got a little emotional there at the end, because he didn't say sorry, and he didn't have to. He's just like, dude, you guys were amazing. And he was crying, and the rest of us started to tear up too. Again, he was one of those guys that we really respected. And
right.
And that also gave me a good feeling, like, what that did, and looking back now, it was a false feeling, but that's not his fault. I know he did what he tried. I know he tried. I know he had our backs. But what I felt at that point, even after seeing the Susan Rice thing, it was, you know what? They have our backs. They're going to get this figured out, and the truth's going to get out there. And I didn't think about it anymore, and I left it at that. And that's
what was his job? I mean, what was his objective?
Well, his objective was to come figure out what the hell happened.
But what was he going to do with that information?
Take it back, because he's one of the senior staffers there at the agency. So he goes back to George Bush headquarters and talks to the chief of support, who we fall under, which is she's high ranking within the agency. So she's like 2 underneath the director, and talk to all the other GRS staffers, and just debrief them and say, this is what happened with these guys. This is the story that they're telling me. And then the powers
that recorded, or
he may have
notes.
He took notes. He did take a ton of notes. But that being said, too, we stayed there for 3 or 4 days. And we can get into, actually, I can get into that. I'll get you into another debrief if we want to keep going. So let's keep going, because I'm going to skip. I'm already skipping all over the place. But
okay.
But we briefed it, and then we're
definitely going to have part 2. So we'll probably have to break this up for everybody. But so you went to that debrief. At what point did you end up in Fridays, TJF Fridays?
That night.
Was that the morning, or that same night there? So night, after that briefing, when did it happen?
It was still the afternoon. So I actually, me, I like to run. I went for a jog. I went and worked out a little bit, and everybody else, we kind of just did our own things. We just kind of all split up and did our own things. I don't know what Jack was doing. They were all just probably sleeping, talking to their wives, talking to families. And then me and Tig were like, man, let's go get some food. Is there any place to go get food? And he's like, yeah. One of the Air Force people there said, yeah, there's a TGI Fridays down the road. Just go walk to it. And so we walked to it. Like, hell yeah, let's go. And we started to eat, and we started to drink. Yeah. Marines and Rangers drinking. I remember drinking, it was Jack and Cokes. I'm drinking Jack and Coke, he's drinking, and we start to get into I remember sitting there looking at him, and I'm going, dude, I know what happened, but I wasn't with you. And I would ask him specific time, like at this time at night, what was going on? What did you see? And then he's the one that was the first one up on that rooftop after the mortars hit. So we got into that. I'm like, dude, because we're drunk. He's drunk. I know we can talk to each other. I said, dude, what did you see when you got up on that roof? Because I saw the mortars hit. He saw the aftermath. He's up on there seeing the carnage of them all getting blown up after that fifth attack. And I'm up there and I go, dude, what happened? And he goes, well, I saw Roan in the fetal position, checked him. I saw Bub, he was face down. I rolled him over. I checked him. Dave, I saw Dave, and Dave, he said his arm was this way and his leg was this way. And he said he had his gun and he kept pointing his gun at me because Dave was freaking out. Dave was going into shock. And I go, what'd you do? He said, I walked over to, now keep in mind, we're laughing while we're disguised because it was just so ludicrous. We're just laughing this whole story. Maybe people think we're weird in there. Maybe we are a little bit, but not laughing in a bad, it's just laughing because we're trying to, it's so horrendously ludicrous and awful that it's just, that's how we're dealing with the stress and the situation. And we're drunk. And he says, well, I grabbed his pistol, and he did the movie spot on. He did exactly that. He took his pistol, Dave, give me your pistol. And he took the magazine out, took the round out and gave it back to him because Dave kept saying, give me my pistol. Because Dave thought he was still going to be in, they thought he was still in the fight. He's all messed, but he had his pistol back. And then I remember I fell out of my chair laughing because he goes, then I looked at Oz, and Oz was over there and he was trying to get a tourniquet on his arm and he couldn't because he got hit with 3 mortars. I mean, he just peppered. And he says, I walked over there and Oz said, man, Oz kept doing this with his arm. Kept moving it because he could move it. And Oz was in shock. And he goes, man, he goes, Oz kept moving his arms in circles. And I remember Tick's like, I said, well, what'd you do, man? I'm like, what the fuck did you do? He goes, I kept telling him, stop moving your arm. You're going to break it even more. You're going to tear it off because there's just tendons. Yeah. And, we were laughing. We were just laughing.
Was there people close to you in there?
Yes, and they were looking at us going, they knew we were in Air Force, definitely. We were in there, but we weren't, I mean, we weren't fuck this like I'm doing here, guys. I shouldn't be doing that, but we were still trying to be respectful as we could, but we're a couple knuckle draggers that have been drinking and now are thinking about what happened. And that is really the first time we're actually thought back and it started not to hit you because it always hits you. It's always, it. It's just like I guess you're starting to kind of not process, but you're
realize it. Yeah.
Thank you. And I remember we stumbled back
before you left there, did anybody in there talk to you guys? Anybody interact with you? They just other people.
The waitress there, she was having fun with us. I mean, she's like, you guys are having too much fun. The drink, because we're at that time, money doesn't mean that much anymore. So we're spending, we're getting everything, whether we eat it or not. We're spending a ton of money in there. We're not being obnoxious as far as rude obnoxious, but we're being loud. So we're not bothering anybody where people are complaining. And it's allowed. It's TGI Fridays on an Air Force base in the evening time. It's a loud place, man. You got military people in there being loud too. And we're at the bar. We're not like we're in the
so you weren't at tables or anything? No.
We're
how many people were in there? Was it pretty full?
Yeah, it's pretty full. Yeah, it was. And as at any bar goes, as it gets more full and more people get drunk, everybody gets louder. Yeah. So and I just remembered it was a good night, man. It was a wonderful night. And it was just me and Tig, and we just laughed and we told, and we told each other what was going on. And that's the beauty of with 13 hours in the book and the movie, is that we really get everybody what everybody did. And we weren't all around each other. So I couldn't always tell you what everybody was doing because we were always doing separate things. And but that night we were sitting there talking. It was awesome. And we walked back, and when we got back, we found Jack, we found Boone, we found our deputy chief of base who was there with us from the agency. We got Alec Henderson. He came out, and we sat outside. There was a landing outside of where our hotel was, or Air Force barracks, Air Force hotel. And we kept getting drunk. And I actually have a picture of that where we're all standing. I've got my USO jacket on. I've got some jeans because I went and bought some jeans. And actually, no, you know what? This was another good, I forgot to tell you this. the USO lady, before I left, she said, write down everything you lost and I'm going to go buy it for you. So that before we talked to the CI officer that came over, there was a knock at my door and she came to my door with bags of stuff. She goes, here.
Wow,
She went and
that's
bought
awesome.
me everything. And so I had jeans on, I had new shoes, I had underwear now, finally. And so, but there's a picture, and I'll post it one of these days. I'm gonna have to block out Scott because he's still working, and our deputy chief of base, or CIDCOB, because I think he's still working. I'll white out their face, but you can see, and Jack, because Jack doesn't want anybody to know who he is, even though Jack is real, guys. And you'll see us. And the only thing that gets me with that picture is I'm smiling. And I look back at it now, I'm like, what do I have to smile about? And I'm telling the story now, and I just got back with me and Tig's smiling. So we were having a good time, but you kind of feel guilty a little bit, It's like, man, I don't know if I should be smiling in that picture, what just happened, but you have to smile. It's a conundrum that you're in. And I think all veterans, I think that's why we go through post-traumatic stress and we go up and down, is because you're thinking, man, am I doing a disservice? Am I to Ron and Bub and the ambassador and Sean and all the people that died that we've served with, because I'm having a good time? But then I think, well, what would they want me to be doing? They want me to be having a good time. I want them to be smiling and having a good time. So that's why I haven't ever posted a pic, is because I'm smiling, and I don't know if I should be. I look back at it now, I'm like, but at that time, I just was trying to get through it because I knew that I wanted to keep working. And I knew if I let it get to me, then I wasn't gonna be able to do the job anymore. So it's like, let's just business as usual. Let's just keep being normal. Even though, is that normal? Talking about your friends getting drunk in a TGI Fridays. As we get older, that's why I think a lot of us, as we get older, we sometimes have issues up here mentally. It's because and it's always going to be like that. It never is going to change. So anyway, that was the TGI Friday story. And then that night, and it was a good night.
We got a ton more, so nobody leave, because we're going to get into some Q&A, but I just want to, so this was part one, and we're going to get into, and everybody, part two is, well, I can't spill the beans, but it's 10 times better.
Oh yeah.
So everybody's going to get an invite to be on part two. So looking forward to that. But before we leave, again, I just want to say, everybody, if you're not an E3 Firearms member, please come on over. This is just, we have a ton of fun. We have a lot of this stuff going on. There's so many great ambassadors and experts inside E3 Firearms, and there's all kinds of education and content and shows and magazines and podcasts and webinars. We do so much over there, and it's a great community. And Kris, I love the communities. The way you interact with all our members on the apps, and when you're talking to them and sharing these great little videos and stuff. I just watched the one yesterday when you're on the range. I mean, it's awesome stuff. So if you're not a member, come on over, use promo code trial, and just come over and check it out. Come check it out. But so we're going to get into some questions, Kris, and then we'll wrap this up because we're an hour and a half in. Then we'll get the part two scheduled. Let's see. Got a question here from, does Kris have any advice for new PMCs who might end up in another situation like what he found himself going through?
You don't worry about it. You do your job. Just do your job. Just like the military, you worry about your brother to your left, and you worry about your brother to your right, or sister to your left, or your sister to your right. This is what you can control of. You don't worry about the politics. Don't worry about who's what we're over there for, the foreign policies. You cannot get into any of that. Do your job. Make sure you and your buddies come home safe. That is what you worry about. Just like the military. If you worry about anything else, you shouldn't be doing it. Never be doing it. And that's honestly probably the best reason why I'm not doing it anymore, because we lost our security clearances. Brennan basically fired us. But that being said, I wouldn't do the job anymore regardless, because now I can't. It's hard for me to think that way now, where in the beginning, and it is a little bit of ignorance, but yeah, it's fine. Keep the blinders on.
Yep.
Because you want to get home, they want to get home, complete the mission 100% and then some, leave no fallen comrade, just get home, and just know that, the government may not have your back. That's fine. Don't worry about it.
Well, we're going to get into that in the part two. For
Oh,
sure.
oh,
And I know
yeah.
there's some questions. So everybody, I think you can raise your hand here if you want to ask questions live. If you wanted to get into a conversation here, let's definitely allow everybody to ask. So you can either type in a question on your computer there and we can unmute you, or raise your hand and we'll go ahead and ask some questions and things for sure. But and Chris J, thanks for putting that message in. And I think you're going to hear a whole lot more on part 2 there. But
Don't be afraid, guys. I can't see the questions, guys. I don't know what you're asking. That's why I'm just waiting. If you have
yeah,
any.
just raise your hand. We got a lot of people on. Raise your hand. If not, you can come on to part 2, and we'll be doing a whole long. Most of part 2 will be Q&A and stuff. So let's see. Other question: how soon did he and his team have to go through debriefing when they got back? And can he talk about what was involved? Well, I think we already kind of talked about
Well, we did that, and
the
we did,
debriefing.
and we did debrief. We did get debriefed when we came back to Langley.
Was there
as well.
anything in the debriefings that kind of came up that you guys are like, oh, whoa, or oh, did he ask any questions, or like, well, why are you asking that? Or
no, that initial one, no, that unofficial debriefing, no, he just listened. He's a great guy, and very respect. When we did finally get back to Langley, we always go back to Langley. We always get debriefed after every mission. That's normal. That wasn't anything new. We got back to Langley, and we'll probably go into a little bit more in part 2. But when we got back to Langley, we did get debriefed officially at CIA headquarters, and they just wanted to know, okay, what happened. And we went through, like, built them a map. This is where we're at. This is how the movements went. It was very, very detailed. We were there all day doing that, and talking to the GRS staffers, not just the guy that came to see us, but now all those staffers were in a big room with his boss. So we were debriefing them all there and just telling them exactly what happened. And to be honest with you, it was pretty much black and white. There was no opinions, nothing like that. It was, well, I did ask him, it's like, hey, why didn't anybody come to help? And I didn't get an answer. And Boone was with me too. He asked the same question. So was Jack. But it was pretty much just, this is what happened. This is where we're at. This is where the firefights happened. This is how many rounds we think we thought. This is shot. This is when the mortars hit. This is where he was on this building. And so it was more of a tactical debrief, like doing an AR. This is how we moved. This is how we had our weapons set up. And it was all day thing. And it wasn't political at all. And again, that's why you got the feeling, well, they're going to get to the bottom of this.
Yep.
What happened. So
okay. So that's all right.
That would have been 4 or 5 days after the attack. And it was been the first day that we got back to the States. But that was normal. Whenever we got back to the States, we'd go back to Langley and we debrief them on any mission we have. That was just more in detail. I stayed there for a whole day. Normally I'd only be debriefed for about an hour. That was like all day thing.
So that's where it's part 2, guys. When we get into part 2, it's like, all right, now I guess we say act 2.
Back to that. I would say
we'll get there, because Steve asked, I know you don't want to be a celebrity of sorts. How do you deal with, and that's part 2, guys, because it's there's a whole conversation about, what happened after that. And hopefully we're not going to get into a whole lot of politics, because this is really about Kris and his life and his family and everything he went through and stuff.
But yeah, bro, but we'll talk. I mean, we have to. It's part of it. We'll talk about people and what I saw and who did what to me and who I talked to, I'm not a victim. Don't ever think, guys, I am no victim. Everything that has gone on, it was my choice to whatever direction I went. But
obviously, Kris, it's going to be hard for us to not get into politics, but I only say that because, ED3 Firearms, we're not a political organization. That's not what we do. But obviously this story has a lot to do with that. But, along with that line that Steve asked, Dave just put in and said, did the CIA or State Department ever apologize for abandoning you guys?
No. And that is one thing where I told them, I remember telling them specifically, and we'll get into this even more, but maybe we write this down. So we asked this question on part 2, where they did warn us, like, hey, when they found out that we were probably, this is on the line. This is after I got back from Yemen. I went out to Yemen after Benghazi. I kept working. When I got back from Yemen and all the crap was being spun, I said to them, I said, we won't want to say a word. All you got to do is apologize. I said this to the chief of support at the time at the CIA. And I said, just apologize. They wouldn't apologize. It's fine. All right, then I'm done. I don't know about the rest of the guys, but I'm done. And I quit. And I said, well, fine, we're going to tell the truth then. And no, because that's a problem with leadership. Leadership can't take responsibility or offer apologies for anything. And so no, they never did, and they never will. That's the arrogance over there at the agency, and that's why their leadership is not where it should be, my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I know we're going to get into a lot of that for sure. Hey, Josh, if you can, try to raise your hand, see if your hand raises on there. I can let you in, and then let's go back to the movie then, seeing where part two isn't part of what we're going to talk about here. You know, Gregory asked, what did the movie get wrong, and or what was changed for a dramatic license?
Sure. Well, you know, like I said, we talked about where I drove a car instead of rode on the top of when we were driving from the from our annex to the airfield. So I wouldn't say it got wrong, but you know, there's a story obviously within that, just that transportation at the end of the night from the annex to the airport. There's that story that wasn't in the movie, which we could have put that in there. There's some, you know, the things that would happen there. The ride back from the annex from Benghazi to Tripoli, where I just told you the story about Bub's arm. I mean, just that ride back on that, I think that could have been very, very powerful. Not showing what I had to do, but just the solemnness and being in that airplane flying from Benghazi to Tripoli, or also that plane not showing up for us and our conversation with them, trying to talk the pilots into flying us out. That could have been in the movie,
right?
But and there were reasons for that. We understood that, because if we did put that in, the movie turns into we knew it was going to get into be political anyway, even though there's nothing political in the movie, and we tried to shy away from that. That was our choice. That wasn't Hollywood. That was us. Like, we just want to, let's talk about Ronan, Bub, and Derek and what went on that night, the battle. Let's not talk about everything else. The only what's the other thing too, guys, explosions implode. That's one thing, and that's when I did talk to Michael Bay about, because you know, when you're shooting some of that CGI with the big vapor trails, the slowness of an RPG and the vapor trail you see behind a 203 round, that doesn't happen. You might see a vapor trail after that RPG hits, because you don't see an RPG unless you're at a pretty good distance. That thing goes as fast, and boom, boom when it hits. Unless you're way away and they're trying to hit you from like half a mile away, then you might see a vapor trail. But that's one thing in the movies. I did go to Mike. I was like, Michael, you don't see vapor trails. There's no vapor trails that you're going to see like that from a 203 and an RPG, especially RPG. It's not going to arc unless you're shooting at a mile away. He's like, Tano, and he goes, all movies do that. And I was like, I looked, I'm like, yeah, you're right. They do all do that. And he goes, we have to do that, or the audience is going to walk out of this movie with Tourette's, because all they're going to see is flashing lights and explosions everywhere. We have to show those, so it gets the effect, so they can be there in the moment. And they can feel that RPG coming to you like you did. And it made sense to me. So I don't have a problem with that being wrong. It's in all movies. Watch every war movie ever. Watch an RPG.
Yeah,
you're
going to tell the story. That's how it is. Yeah.
But they got it right. And I do remember Michael Bay redoing a scene because Pablo's hand was in the wrong position on that Mark 46. He had his palm down. And I remember they did the scene, and I'm there in Malta. I was on set. All of us were on set for part of that movie. And I remember it was in the mortar scene, and it got hit, and he came up, and he and I let the scene finish.
Turn your hand over.
Yeah. And I like, Michael, he goes, what do you think? And Michael B, he'd look at me. He goes, what do you think? I said, it was great, except his hand, it's got to be up. He's a Ranger. I said, Marines, maybe their hands are down. Rangers, our hands are up, palm up. When you charge that charging hand, that palm's got to be up. I said, you just lost every Ranger in the movie. And he redid the scene. They did everything. They put the explosions, all the material back up, and they did it again. And
I'm glad you did that. It's nothing that drives me crazy more than watching a movie and somebody walking around with their finger on the trigger.
Well, it ruins it. I mean, not ruin, but for everybody that knows, it ruins. But that was how accurate they wanted to get the movie, and everything in there, all the scenes, whether it's Jack saying it or Tig saying it, those words are all of our words. It may not be exactly what we said, because he's trying to get everybody's words into one scene, because you can't go to everybody for one scene. It's got to be one. everything that was said and felt is what we felt.
Yep.
And that was what makes that movie
Awesome.
excellent. Even
Yeah,
the
he did a
funny
great
stuff.
job on
He
that.
did a great job.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the parts was, and I know we're over on time, but we're going to keep going a few more minutes, everybody. We
Yeah.
hit some of these questions, but one of them is the chakra.
Oh, that jumbo.
Is that
I did.
real?
Yeah, the
'Cause we had a
jumbo is
question.
exactly real. I learned the jumbo. I learned the jumbo in Mosul when I worked. I worked in a lot of great places, guys. I got summer homes in all these freaking places. I mean, but I was in Mosul at Camp Merez, and we had Sudanese guards there. This was 2008, I think it was. And every time I go out our CIA gate, they hey, Tano Jumbo, and I didn't know what it meant. I mean, I assumed it meant be cool, like Chaka, you know. But I stopped them one day. I said, "Hey, dudes, are you guys telling me to f off every time I?" And they're good guys. I was joking with them. They're like, "No, Mr. Tano, it just means it's Swahili for good morning. Is what it actually means." But because of social media, because of the Shaka, because of be cool, it's like, hey, no, it just means be cool. It means be cool, brother. That's cool. And if I threw that up, because most of the menial labor is done by West Africans or North Africans in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so even Iraqis and Afghanis, they know what this means. Be cool. If I threw that up and I got it back, 9 times out of 10, I knew that was a friendly, or it was though somebody didn't have to worry about it. And guys, that was the only thing I had no communication. I didn't know what else to think. That was the first thing that popped in my head. I was tired. I was hungry. It's been a long fucking night and morning. I don't know what else to do. No communication. Yeah. And I got it back. And, luckily for me, they were friendlies. And that was the most beautiful smile I've ever seen. And I have a beautiful wife, I have beautiful kids. The most beautiful smile I've ever seen was that driver and that guy in the Dishka gunner that was pointing at me. He came off. They were both chewing khat that morning, which is an amphetamine they chew. It's a leaf. It's basically Copenhagen mixed with cocaine and steroids. And they were chewing it, just grouping out of their mouth. They smiled at me, and it was the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen in my life, even with all that brown, goopy khat dripping out of their toothless mouths. It was gorgeous.
Okay. Well, cool. And then, you just talked about the kids and stuff, and I know we got some questions in here. So in episode 2, guys, we are going to talk about, family when you got home, all that kind of stuff. There was a question here, and looks like Randy, not sure, Kris, if you can talk about it, but what's Jack done since he's been back from Benghazi?
Sure. No, I can talk about it. I just can't tell you who he is. And Jack is a pseudo, guys. It's not his real name. And I'm not going to tell you his real name because his wife would castrate me. His wife does not want Jack out there at all. But Jack lives quietly with his wife. They do. I'll tell you, they do live in Washington. I'm not going to tell you the exact city. Jack, actually, the movie spot on, Jack is in real estate. And that's why he started to contract again, because during that time frame, his real estate took a tank. So he had to come out and contract again, but he still does real estate. And he also does some executive protection. So he's still working. He still does executive protection for I don't know who the person is. I don't want to know. I've never asked him. So he didn't need to tell me, but I still talk to him probably I haven't talked to him probably in 5 months, but Jack and me have that kind of relationship where we don't have to talk for 10 years, and he could call me and it'd be like, I just talked to him yesterday. And he has his kids, he has his boys and girls. And he's doing well. He's just Jack. And Jack does actually, for real, he looks kind of like him and John Krasinski actually kind of look alike. That's why it's so spot on. He looks like John Krasinski, boy next door.
Cool. So let's hear one more question here, and then we'll roll these over the part 2. Let's see. Dan asked, in the movie, it was alluded to that the attack was planned for a while and not spontaneous.
It wasn't.
It wasn't?
No, it was a planned attack by Al Qaeda in the Maghreb and South Sharia, and also Rafala Sahate, which, guys, Rafala Sahate is a terrorist organization, but we've also now found out that they were part of 17th Feb Martyrs Brigade. If you watch the movie, that's the Martyrs Brigade that was supposed to help us. They actually, Rafala Sahate and the 17th Feb Martyrs Brigade are the ones that set the mortars up on us. So those mortars were set up by the people that Bob was trying to get to respond to help us, and always tried to. They're the ones that actually got those mortars set up on us. It was, I want to say, I don't know the number of months, but it was quite a few months prior to. And Al Qaeda in the Maghreb and Zawahiri was actually the ones who was the number 2 for Al Qaeda. They're the ones that planned the attack. And yeah, it was set up. They did a great job. I don't like terrorists, but I respect the hell out of their fighting capabilities and what they do, because they do what we do. They did the reconnaissance. They did the reconnaissance that day of with the police that was up there taking the pictures. That wasn't movie magic. They did that. There was police that were taking pictures of the gates in the morning prior. That happened. And they had been doing recon many months since. Plus, also, they had tested the exterior walls by hitting the consulate 2 times prior to that night. Those that don't know, that consulate had been hit twice before with IEDs. They were trying to blow the exterior walls up to get through the walls. They couldn't. They actually failed twice. Hence why they just went through the front gate, because they couldn't breach the exterior walls. So yes, it was a very well planned, coordinated attack. The only plus side, and the reason we were able to fight them off, is just because tactically we're better as far as just doing individual movement tactics, small unit tactics. And that was it, that we were better. But they had the numbers, and if we would have stayed there any longer, yeah, they would have eventually overrun us. They would have got us. They just took too long to get their shit together. Whenever we'd punch them back in the face, it took them a while to get their stuff back there to hit us again, and we just managed to get out of there before they could hit us again. And with the help of Gaddafi's militia, that definitely did help us, because it gave us a force multiplier. We had a lot of people now. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, this was awesome. And thanks everybody. And hey, I just want to remind everybody, come on over and be members with us at e3firearmsassociation.com. Use the promo code trial. And maybe you guys can text with Kris live. You can text with Adam. I know there's a bunch of members on here. We have a whole bunch of new ambassadors that are now part of helping you guys out and sharing more videos and things. But it's an incredible community led by Kris. And just come on over and check us out. So everybody will be sending you out an email for part 2, and we'll get that scheduled here. And it's already scheduled, but we'll get you guys all an email and your links so you can come into part 2. And then when you come to part 2, bring some more questions. Be ready.
Yeah,
because we're going to go through the next month or 2 with Kris, and bring all your questions, and we'll see you guys on the other side. Kris, awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everybody out there. God bless you guys. Have a great week. Yep.
Bye-bye. Take care, everybody. Bye.